Okay, so hi. I'll try that again. That wasn't very good. Or I'll just leave all this in.
Keep this in, please.
Yeah, this is the good stuff right here. Hi, and welcome to Venture Bros, a Venture Brothers podcast. This week, we are going to be talking the episode Careers in Science. So I am joined by my always co-host, Nick Friedemann, and my new always co-host, Graham Mason.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, Nick went way more sensual with his greetings.
I did. Sitting here with my shirt off because it's a little hot in here, so...
None of us need
looking
already.
at
I'm wearing a shirt and a hoodie, so that's that.
I'm
Perfect.
wearing 2 shirts.
That's more than enough shirts for all three of us.
Apparently, according to you.
Yeah, who wears no shirt? I don't need to know that. I wish I did. Now I'm just going to be picturing that you're rubbing your nipples the whole episode. Anyhow.
That's what that sound is.
I thought it was he was sanding something down.
My nipples are chafy, so yes.
Oh, boy. So before we get started in this one, I'd like to ask Graham to answer the question I asked Nick last time, or first time. How did you come to Venture Brothers, and what do you love about it?
Oh, man. I don't remember, actually, now. Probably Adult Swim.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I love the Adventure Boys.
Clearly. You even remember the name so well.
Dank and Heen.
Oh, Dank.
Ooh.
He's hilarious when he's punching.
Well,
Yeah, so it's probably just one of those things that I found on, good old Adult Swim back in the day. And then, yeah, just have loved it since.
okay, so with that accomplished, we can start talking this episode.
Yep.
Well, we did accomplish it.
We did.
Yes.
Mission accomplished. Just as good as Bush. Anyways.
Anyway, so today's episode is Careers in Science, or Career in Science is how I have it in my notes, because apparently I don't like S's.
There is an S in science, though, Brian.
No, Bryan didn't use it, though. It's just CIENCE.
Interesting.
It's still,
I mean, I guess it would still work.
yeah, it still kind of works. It does for me. Clearly, I pronounced it right.
You're just saving time.
Yeah, except for all this time we just wasted explaining how I saved that time.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Aving time left and right.
Yep. Okay, so this one, for me, was a long time my favorite episode of the entire series. There's something about just the whole story with Rusty and how he basically ruined Gargantua 1, and it led to one of their best specials of all this in Gargantua 2. There's just so much about this episode that I think is absolutely hysterical and wonderful that usually when I tell people who've never seen anything and have no interest in watching it, this is the one I point them to. Of like, this is a really good intro. You get the boys, you get how stupid they are, you get wonderful Doc where you finally start having him like do his hallucinations and how he thinks of his dad as this like god that he has to avoid. Brock has a great side story. Like, everything in this episode for me just works. I don't know how you guys feel about it.
Well, it's funny because, like, you mentioned last time that this was your favorite episode and that you quote it all the time, and I did not recognize it by the title, and I just nodded along, and I was like, yeah, me too. And then
Indeed. Careers in science. Yep.
Uh-huh.
Gotta be good.
And then I watched it, and I was like, oh, shit, I do quote this all the time.
Especially it's on, it's off, it's on, it's off, it's on, it's off. It's called blinking.
I
think
There's so many good moments.
Like, there's a few times, like, when I get into a parking spot, I do the whole, like, the same way that Brock, like, arrives in the station. Like, oh, yeah, just gotta do it real slow. And, like, oh, that's a big one.
That's a tight fit.
It's almost like they were made for each other. They were made for each other.
They were made by the same man.
The intro to that bit is, where do you want this hot rocket? Goodness.
Like, And this was, I mean, in my opinion, granted, people might disagree with me, but this is like the first time where, I mean, granted, we're only 2 episodes in, but like they really started showing their nerdiness with like references of like science fiction stuff and old TV shows and old movies. Like, even though they don't fully dive into it, all those references are still, they start happening here, and it's, I love seeing those things start happening, especially with the blinking light that looks like Hal from 2001.
Exactly. I also think that, like, we talked a lot about the last 2 episodes and kind of how they set up the characters, and it's funny because I think this one is the first one where we really get to experience not just Dr. Venture, but Brock as well. Kind of like what makes them tick, a little bit of their background, just kind of in general what is funny about them. Like, I think that this is where they finally realize, I mean, they were edging towards this in the last 2 episodes, but this is where they finally realized that it's much, much, much more funny to have Dr. Venture just constantly frustrated by everybody. You know, like his intro scene in this episode is him just like being annoyed at the 2 boys and just being like not cool, and I think that's a great intro for his character.
Oh yeah, he gets super pissed, and then even Brock's like, I'm cool.
Yeah.
He has no problem with it whatsoever.
No.
But there's something with like Rusky that I think they did in this episode that just made him so annoyed the whole way through, and it was wonderful, and that's him pissing his own spacesuit.
Yes.
Like, that was such a brilliant idea of just something that, like, it's just in the back of your head the whole time. Because they only kind of make a few references to it, like, here and there. Like, I think after the, your daddy's basing in his own juices, like, they don't really bring it up again after that till it pours out of the suit and ruins everything.
Right.
Exactly.
But it's just in the back of your mind the whole episode, and you're like, he is so uncomfortable and annoyed this whole time.
Like,
And
go
ahead, Graham, sorry.
It's like, we've all had wet shoes. Like, just imagine that just being filled in your whole spacesuit. And the whole setup for it is incredible. Because they set up for it. The first thing in the episode is like, no, I really have to pee. I really need to use the restroom. And they just keep on going and going and going. And then now he's basting in his own juices for the rest of the episode.
And it's a situation that he creates himself. Like, I think that's the best part, is that he's annoyed at everybody else, but he could easily fix this. Like, this is an easily fixable situation that he just refuses to take the extra effort to fix.
Well, it's that, and it's like, he very well, he built his own fucking spacesuit. Like, he should know there's no waste collection.
Exactly.
Oh god, I love that. And then the other thing in this episode that's like the running gag that I just find hysterical, and I apologize to women everywhere, but the ugly woman joke the whole way through, it just destroys me.
See, it's funny, like, I was gonna say that was the one part that I didn't really love about the episode, was that, and it's really only one moment that bothered me. I think a lot of it works really well, but the one moment that bothered me, and it's used to set up a joke by Hank and Dean, which is when they catch I think Dr. Blagojevich and Brock having sex, and they think that it's Phantom Spaceman. And so it's like, exactly. And they use that to set up the, like, her helmet coming off and then them realizing that it's Dr. Blagojevich. Right. But I think the thing that bothers me is that Brock is such like a ladies' man, and he doesn't seem to care who he has sex with, and it's weird to me that he has her wear the helmet, because it never seems to bother him in any other situation. So it just felt a little off for his character. That's the thing that kind of irked me about it.
I'll agree with him making her wear the helmet. Didn't really seem like him. Usually he just wouldn't care. He's like, she's ugly, whatever.
Exactly.
The thing that I like about it isn't the fact that she's ugly and they hate her for that. It's the fact that they couldn't decide how to draw a woman ugly enough to make everyone have that reaction, so they just never show her face.
Exactly. That I do like. I do like the cleverness of getting around, like, you have to fill it in yourself sort of thing.
I thought that was really funny. And yeah, the joke is really dated, and it doesn't work nearly as well now as it did then, and it probably would not be in an episode these days, but for the time, I still think it was really funny.
Oh, for sure.
And then you have Bud Manstrong, or however you pronounce his last name, or I'm going to be totally wrong about that. Is it Manstrong?
It's Manstrong.
Yeah, Bud Manstrong.
That's what. He's a guy who comes back later, and like every time he shows up, he cracks me up. Like, I really like Bud. He's just the perfect like mama's boy dullard.
Yes.
Yeah. And just their whole relationship of him and I'm forgetting her name now, but the whole he won't have sex with her because it's too early and he doesn't want to rush things. They've been up there for years.
Yes.
Just holding hands and taking long walks around the station.
Oh my god. God bless her. She put up with so much.
Seriously. And I do like that they give her that moment too where she's just like what do you want from me? You had an opportunity to pursue me as a romantic interest and just nothing happened. So what the fuck do you want?
Yeah, she's given him so many go ahead.
He had to talk to his mother first, so that was the thing. He had to get permission.
Oh, and we meet her later, and it's one of my favorite. I think that episode is one of my favorites, where you kind of get the reintroduction of this whole situation.
That's great. I'm not a big fan of the ghost Abraham Lincoln, but we'll get to that.
We'll get there eventually. We'll get there.
I mean, I enjoy it, but
I love Bud Manstrong's confrontation of Blagojevich too. I think that's hilarious.
Oh yeah. Wait, with him or with Brock in space? Because those are the two that I loved.
With him and her.
Okay.
Oh, I know what happened between you two.
Oh,
it's I shaked his hand. Man, he's got huge sausage fingers. What does he have? A huge mushroom down there?
That's the best.
No, you took it in the lap. Oh my god. I'm trying to think of other things that we haven't really talked about in this one. There's not really a ton of history that I looked into this one. This didn't really seem like that special of an episode in any way.
It's the first intro you get of the dad. Is an actual true intro. They've talked about the dad before, and I think you've seen him in a flashback bit before, but it's the first time you actually get to experience Rusty's relationship with his father. And I wrote down in my notes, this is the first time that I think I actually understand Rusty. I would never want to hang out with Rusty Venture. I think he would be a nightmarish situation.
I would totally hang out with him. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh my god. Get ready for one of the longest, worst nights of your life, I feel like.
Yeah, but he's got all the coolest toys. He's going to have the newest Nerf. That's
for sure.
thing.
You get hover boots.
Hell
That's
yeah.
true.
Hover boots, Nick.
Not worth it.
Wow. I've definitely put up
Not
with some bad friends for some cool toys.
Yeah, for hover boots?
Hell yeah.
Dean always looks like he's having so much fun.
Ugh. But I do think that it's the first glimpse of how Rusty became Rusty, which is his father is terrible. And we talked about that before, but his father is atrocious.
Oh, he's a real bad dude. And I love that he's always held as this god level esteem, and we never, to this day we still don't have a full answer of whatever happened to him, right?
I don't think so. I don't think you ever figure out how he died.
No. Or if he's dead, quote unquote.
That's true. That's very true.
I wonder if they'll ever actually answer that. I don't think they will.
No.
Because they've kind of answered some things. They've answered some, they've kind of answered who the mom is, or you can kind of guess who the mom is.
Yeah.
And they've answered, well, I guess they still haven't answered why the Monarch actually hates Venture.
Yeah, you're right. They kind of do, but not really. I think they'd make jokes, but nothing that seems solid.
Yeah, because there's that one interchange between the Moppets and I think it's Dr. Miss and the Monarch at that point, where they're like, why does he hate the Dr. Venture? And she's like, well, because he has more hate in his heart than anyone. Yeah, but why does he hate him? Because he's the best villain out there. No, but what did he do to make him hate him? He's got more hate in his heart. God, what do we have to do to get a straight answer? It's so good.
I also love one other thing I wanted to bring up as well is I rewatched this episode and then I watched it again later because I was I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything and just to brush up on the Venture Brothers as a whole. And I love Helper. I think this is such a great Helper episode.
Helper's incredible. I think the Diodilus Dangerous as well with the
yes.
Mexican horn was hilarious. But no, Helper is the greatest supporting thing and consistent thing for just that just random comedic relief, and it's just I love him a bunch.
I also like that they kind of knew when to stop using him as much. Like, because he was
Yes.
so
Yeah.
good early on, but he'd be kind of one-noted after a while, and they kind of go like, well, they made him into a walking eye, and then they just kind of stopped using him as much. But in the beginning, he was so good. And this one, when he's doing his best Sandra Bullock in space, it's so good.
Oh, it's so true. It has my favorite moment where it just randomly cuts to this woman in what I assume is New York City on the phone. And she's talking to somebody and then just snap cuts to help her. She's like, I've got another call. And then like he's just screaming as he's flying through space and she's like, oh, somebody was trying to fax me. And that's the whole thing. It's one of the best bits I think I've ever seen on the show.
Oh, God, I love this episode. All right, where are we at? We're at about... We've been talking for about 20-ish
We're
minutes.
about 17-ish minutes.
What haven't we hit? Is there something we haven't talked about in this thing that we should definitely hit before every Venture Brothers fan out there goes, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Graham. Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to circle back to Rusty and his father's relationship and just kind of say it's like, yeah, I mean, if you, like, I think we all did kind of growing up watching some of these, science, boy wonder type shows.
Yeah, definitely.
And then you see these figures like Johnny Quest and stuff like that. And their father.
Action Johnny, please.
Yes. And you're like, wow, how cool would it be if my dad was, a crazy, scientist doing all this stuff and traveling the world and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, this is probably the most realistic version of what that would be. Like, no, it'd be really terrible because your dad would never be home. He would always be out doing some incredible stuff and then would come back and just like give you a shot in the shoulder and be like, man, I wish you were there. And you're like, yeah, that's not a great father. It's a lot of cool stories, but not very cool.
That, and it's just like that. The question that he asked him is very true. Who lets a 10-year-old build a space station?
Exactly.
It's like,
Yeah.
Well,
like,
what else would he do? It's like that's the father. That's exactly what he would do. He would totally be that version. But who does that?
Well, Jonas had to be on a space station because he had to be building a space station. He's not gonna he's not gonna have the fucking Team Venture watch Rusty. Rusty's got to be with Dad at all times, and it's like, that's probably not a good idea. Your son might be a really non-adjusted son of a bitch when he grows up.
Addicted to diet pills.
Yeah.
Whatever
Dad.
those are.
Yeah, those were not diet pills. If they can make you stop hallucinating, I think those were, fuck, I don't even know what those would be.
Something else, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like antipsychotics. That was a great moment, though. Like, oh, I found one. Bye, Daddy.
Yeah.
Oh, and that also has like some of my favorite things of like just how he thinks. Like just showing how Dr. Venture thinks is so fun because it's like he's having an argument with himself and is fully aware that he's having an argument with himself and still loses to himself.
Yes.
Like he's having an argument with his dad that he admits is part of his subconscious, and his dad wins the argument. Like even in a subconscious way, he's still lesser than his dad, and that says so much about Rusty.
For sure. And there's an amazing line that he has where he was like, oh, I guess I always imagined you were bigger than me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like this really kind of like heartbreak. Like I think James Urbaniak is amazing in this episode as Dr. Venture.
Oh, yeah.
Like I think that he gives him a sense of humanity that he didn't really have before, but also not taking it so far where you're like, I empathize with him. You're just kind of seeing where these problems come from, and you're just like, ugh.
Yeah, but it makes it real though. I mean,
Yeah,
you can
for
totally
sure.
you can totally see that. You're like, wow, you weren't 12 feet tall. It's like, oh, I guess I always thought you was towering over me. It's like, yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts.
One other random thing I want to bring up, this is all the moment really deserves, is when the airlock gets open and Brock somehow still survives. The face that he has as he's holding on to whatever it is that he's holding on to is the funniest face. I don't know why, but it cracked me up so much that I rewatched it and was just like, this is the funniest, most intense, in pain face I've ever seen in a show.
The fact that he grabs a cigarette as it's flying out past him. Like, that's wonderful, and I love the, like, anyone else who's been sucked out of an airlock would A, be dead, but B, just the fact that he comes in and just goes, I need to lie down for a moment.
And then she comes in and he's like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "I coughed up one of those things, a little pink thing about the size of a kiwi fruit."
Yeah, kiwi fruit. I don't feel anything missing though, so I think I'll be all right.
Yes, oh, that's so good.
Oh God. All right, I'm gonna look at my notes really quick and see if there's anything that I feel that we must talk about before we move into our last thing here. Nope, those are all notes for the next episode. No, that was everything. Oh, I'm forgetting his name right now. Thurell. I'm forgetting his first name. The guy who does the music. I think his music in this episode is absolutely phenomenal, and they bring it back a lot after this one. But that zoo, 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 like,
yes,
it's so good. Like, it just brings you into the episode just immediately, and it just has that perfect like 1950s sci-fi sort of like everything's okay, even though we're definitely destroying the environment. Like,
exactly.
Like, it's such a good song. Like, I love the hell out of it. If you guys haven't found it yet, they put all of his original music for Venture Brothers on Spotify about a month ago.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
It's so good. Like, I've listened to all of it many times through, and it's just, the guy just blows me away every time. But this song, I think, is one of my favorites of his throughout the entire thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think just like talking about the music and the art, and obviously this is true pretty much for the rest of the show, but I think they do such a great job at mimicking all of the, you know, stories and shows that we grew up on, and just like it takes you there. It fills that space, but then yet, you know, not modernizes it, but, you know, matures it enough for us to enjoy again now, with all these kind of like little inside jokes and stuff like that. I think it's incredible.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
And it's like one of those things where, like, I didn't really even watch those shows that much, but I watched them enough to enjoy them and always kind of know what they were.
Sure. Yeah.
And then I kind of agree with both of them when they talked about, like, when they went back to Johnny Quest when they're prepping for this show, they're like, this show really didn't age well. Like, it's not very fun to watch at all anymore. And, like, I don't disagree with them at all. It's like,
no.
Like, as a kid, I'm like, yeah, okay, this is kind of fun, but it's mostly because you're just imagining yourself in these scenarios. And it's not because the scenarios themselves are that great to watch. This show's great because it's just great to watch. I don't want to beat anyone on this show.
No, absolutely not.
All right, so for our last segment here, we do favorite moments in the episode. You get your one favorite moment. What's your biggest takeaway scene? And then we'll get out of this. Graham, do you want to go first?
Sure. I think what you were talking, like when we opened this episode, what you were talking about is like this is one of the more quotable episodes, and yeah, I think one of the more quotable things was the "it's on, it's off, it's on, it's off, it's on, it's off," and I have quoted that scene more times than anything else in my life. And so yeah, that's one of my favorite scenes for sure.
I mean, nearly every time I come across a blinking light, I will make that joke, much to Chewie's annoyance.
Accurate.
My favorite moment in this entire thing, I have to go with. It has to be the very opening of the spaceship docking at the station. Just their interchange is just so great. Nick, what about you?
Mine, it's weird. This quote I didn't realize came from this episode, but it is the quote that I use all the time when thinking, like, either at work or anywhere else if somebody asks me for a favor, which is when Dr. Venture says, "Flattery will get you everywhere," which I think sums up his character so well.
Yeah, that definitely does it. God. Did we even mention the fact that Rusty's the one who actually broke the space station in the first place?
No, we didn't.
How did we forget that?
At all.
Like, it's the best thing about it is just like the subconsciously you think this is your fault. Oh my God, it is my fault.
And how it references itself in its own episode, I think, is pretty great too.
Oh yeah,
with its own flashback.
Like, the greatest thing about the episode, and we all three forgot it. Way to go! We're still firing on all cinders over here at Venture Bros.
Adventure Boys. It's Adventure Boys.
Yes, the Adventure Boys. One thing I also wanted to bring up is that this is kind of like, it's a really well-constructed episode, but it's also kind of like a ballsy, what is essentially second episode. You introduce the Monarch in the true first episode, and then he's nowhere to be found in this. Where it's kind of like, if you were watching from episode 1 to episode 2, I think you'd assume that they would trot out the same sort of structure, and they don't.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, kind of like a Monster of the Week, but like reattempt of the week, or like Cobra Commander or something like that, to where it's like, oh yeah, and then when are they going to fight again?
Exactly.
Like,
It's pretty interesting.
like you with the Power Rangers have like, oh, well, they're gonna fight this monster and this and that. I wonder if they're gonna win. I bet they do.
Yep.
Thanks, Mom.
Surprise, surprise.
For those of you who don't know, Graham just made me relive a horrifying story from my childhood of my mom ruining Power Rangers for me by being sarcastic. Okay, so let's do a quick round of plugs if we have them, and then we can we'll say goodbye. You're already on the feed, so if you feel like listening to it after the hype, we've been going on for about 6 to 7 years now, so there's plenty of episodes for you to listen to. None available with Nick anymore because we've ran out of server space, but plenty with Graham if you want to hear Graham on After the Hype.
Yay! Bye, Nick.
It's okay. I'm just crying over here.
That's it for me plug-wise. You guys have anything to plug?
I do not.
Nick, you're working on a video game, right? What's that video game?
I can't say, but
You're
when
just
it
not aware.
comes
You're not
out,
aware
I
of what
can.
it is. You're working on it. You
I'm
just
not
don't
even
know.
sure. It's like that joke in Monty Python where it was so funny that people died, so they split it up into 3-word segments. So right now I'm working on a 3-word segment, and I have no idea what's around me.
So play that game
Cool.
from Nick. Graham, anything to plug?
Nothing really. Just doing boring life, you know.
Cool. So go do Boring Life.
Yeah. I'm just watching the Adventure Boys, and that's pretty much it.
Ringing endorsement from Graham for Boring Life. Okay, so that's it for us here at Venture Brothers. I'll give it a very soft Go Team Venture, and bye!
Go. Adventure.